Hello guys, and today we're going to do a creepypasta, and you may know about it. It's that what's on the screen right now. It is known as BenDrowned. Drowned. If you don't know why in the hell I'm doing a creepypasta, it is because this one is a popular one, and everyone's talking about it. So I'm doing it this time. Okay, now let's start. Okay. People say this is actually a real creepypasta, but I don't really believe that. Ready? And now I'm gonna read it. Having just said that, I recently I need your help with this. This is not copypasta. This is a long read, but I feel like my safety or well-being could very depend on this. This is a video game related, specifically Majora's Mask, and the creepiest word that has ever happened to me in my entire life. Having just said that, I recently moved into my dorm room, starting as a sophomore in college, and a friend of mine gave me his old Nintendo 64 to play. I was stoked. To say the least, I could finally play all those old games of my youth that I hadn't touched in at least a decade. His Nintendo 64 came with one yellow controller and a rather shoddy copy of Super Smash Bros. And while beggars can't be choosers, needless to say, it didn't take long until I became bored of beating up level 9 CPUs. That weekend, I decided to drive around a few neighborhoods, about 20 minutes or so off campus, hitting up the local garage sales, hoping to score some good deals from ignorant parents. I ended up picking a copy of Pokemon Stadium Goldeneye in parentheses. Fuck yeah. I'm not saying that on purpose. And then F-Zero and two other consoles for $2. Satisfied, I began to drive out the neighborhood when one last house caught my attention. I still have no idea why I did it there, but were no cars there, and only one table was set up and with a random junk on it. But something sort of drew me there. I usually trust my gut on these things, so I got out of my car and I was greeted by an old man. His outward appearance was, for lack of a better word, displeasing. It was odd. If you asked me to tell you why I thought he was displeasing, I couldn't really pinpoint anything. There was something about him that put me on the edge. I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that if it wasn't in the middle of the afternoon and there were other people within shouting distance, I would not have even thought of approaching this man. He flashed a crooked smile at me and gazed what I was looking for. And immediately I noticed that he must be blind in one of his eyes. His right eye had that glazed over look about it. I forced myself to look to his left eye instead, try not to offend, and ask him if he had any old video games. I was already wondering how I could politely excuse myself from the situation, when he would tell me he had no idea what a video game was, but to surprise he had a few ones in an old box. He assured me be back in a jiffy and turn to head back into the garage. As I watched him hobble away, I couldn't help but notice what he was selling on his table. Littered across his table were rather particular paintings, various artworks, and looked like ink blots. That's like Cyctrace, I don't know. Cyctrace, I forgot that word. I might show you. Curious, I looked through them. It was obvious that why no one was visiting this guy's garage sales. There weren't exactly forgot that word too. Aesthetically pleasing. As I came to the last one, for some reason, it looked almost like Majora's Mask. The same heart-shaped body with little spikes protruding outward. Initially, I just thought that since I was secretly hoping to find that game at these garage sales, some Freudian bullshit was projecting itself into the ink blots. But given the events that happened afterwards, I'm not sure now. I should have asked the man about it. I wish I would have asked the man about it. No, I just said that. After staring at the Majora-shaped blot, I looked up at the old man, and suddenly, there again, arms in length in front of me, smiling at me. I'll admit, I jumped out of reflex and laughed nervously as he handed me a Nintendo 64 cartridge. It was the standard gray color, except that someone had written Majora on the back of it, Majora on it in black permanent marker. I got butterflies in my stomach as I realized it was a coincidence. This was, and I asked him how much he wanted it. The old man smiled at me, and told that I could have it for free. That it used to belong to a kid who was about my age, that didn't live here anymore. There was something weird about how the man phrased that, but I didn't really pay attention to then. I was too caught up in not only finding this game, but getting it for free. I reminded myself to be a bit skeptical, since this looks like a pretty shady cartridge, and there is no guarantee it would work. But then the optimist inside me interjected that maybe it was some kind of beta version or pirated version of the game, and that was all I needed to be back on cloud 9. I think the man smiled at me and wished me well, saying goodbye then. At least that's what it sounded like to me. All the way in the car, ride home, I was nagging a doubt. I had a nagging doubt that man had something else. My fears were confirmed when I booted up the game. To my surprise, it worked just fine. And there was one save file named simply Ben. Goodbye, Ben. He was saying, goodbye, Ben. I felt bad for the man. Obviously, a grandparent and obvious going senile, and I, for some reason or another, reminded him of his grandson, Ben. Out of curiosity, I looked at the save file, eyeballing it. I could tell that he was pretty far in the game. He had almost all the masks and 3/4 of remains of the bosses. I noticed that he had used an owl statue to save his game. He was on day 3 and by the Stone Tower's temple, with hardly an hour left before the moon would crash. I remember thinking that it was a shame that he had come so close to beating the game, but he had never finished it. I made a new file named Link out of tradition, and started the game, ready to relive my childhood. For such a shady-looking game cartridge, I was impressed at how smoothly it ran. Literally, just like a retail copy of the game, save for a few minor hiccups here and there, like textures being where they shouldn't be, random flashes of cutscenes and odd intervals, but nothing too bad. However, the only thing that was a little unnerving was that the times the MPs would call me Link, and at other times they would call me Ben. I figured it was just a bug, a fluke in the programming, causing our files to be mixed up or something. It did kind of creep me out though after a while, and it was around after I had been beaten the Woodfall Temple that I regretfully went to save the files and deleted Ben. I intended to preserve the file, just out of respect of the game, its original owner. It's not like I needed 2 files anyways, hoping that would solve the problem. It did, and it didn't. Now NPCs would call me anything. Where my name should be in the dialogue, there was just a blank space. My save file name was still called Link. Was still called though frustrated and with homework to do, I put the game down for a day. I started playing the game again last night, gaining the lens of truth and working my way towards completing the Snowhead Temple. Now some of your more hardcore Majora's Mask players know about the 4th day glitch. For those who don't, you can Google it, but the gist of it is that right as the clock is about to hit 000000 on the final day, you talk to the astronomer and look through the telescope. If you time it right, the countdown disappears, and you essentially have another day to finish whatever you're doing, deciding to do the glitch and to try and finish the Snowhead Temple. I happened to get it right on the first try. The time counter on the bottom disappeared. However, when I pressed B to exit the telescope, instead of being greeted by an astronomer, I found myself in the Majora boss fight room at the end of the game. The trippy box in the arena, staring at Skull Kid hovering above me. There was no sound, just him floating in the air above me, and the background music, which was regular for the area, but still creepy. Immediately, my palms began to sweat. This was definitely not normal. Skull Kid never appeared here. I tried moving around the area, and no matter where I went, Skull Kid would always be facing me, looking at me, not saying anything. Nothing would happen though. And this kept up for around 60 seconds. I thought the game had bugged or something, but I was doubted very much. I was about to reach the reset button, but when text appeared on my screen, you're not sure why, but you apparently have a reservation. I instantly recognized that text. You get that message when you get the room key from Andrew at the Stockpot Inn. But why was it playing here? Okay, guys, that's like the last of it, but we have part 2 next. So So to be continued.